Hello and welcome to the ACT Impact Hub here in the Lions Impact Studio. I'm Amy Williams, founder and CEO of Goodloop. Goodloop is a responsible platform that takes social impact strategies and turns them into brand strategies with meaningful, quantifiable ROI. My whole goal is to help business leaders and marketing leaders articulate the business case for social impact, because if we bake it into our business strategies, we make it more scalable, more durable, and ultimately more repeatable. So I am so excited to have this conversation today. Thank you for joining me. Today I have Tim from the NFL, I have Nathan from understood.org, and I have Sara from BetterHelp. And I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves a little bit, but also give us like a little insight into a day in your life. You know, what are some of your priorities? What are some of the things that are keeping you up at night? And what does it look like to be the CMO of the NFL, for instance?
Yes, that's a great question. What's it like to be the CMO, aside from being here in Cannes? We have two real core communication strategies at the NFL. One is like the joy of the game itself, and all the excitement around the game. And then the other is, how do you transcend the game? And how do you find a way to give back to your communities and be a force for good? Our strategies in the U.S. is continuing to develop and expand our fan base and diversify our fan base. So, for example, I'm thinking all the time, you ask me what I think about, what I do every day, thinking all the time about how do we attract more young people, how do we engage more young people, how do we bring in and recruit more Latinos, which helps us not only in the U.S., but also in Central South America and in Spain. And then also, how do we attract more girls and women? And how do we understand them more as fans, and how we can bring them in and make them sort of more engaged fans? Because we have almost 47% of our fan base that are women, but they're not as engaged as some of our other fan members. So that's also important to us. And so this whole area, when I talk about transcending the game, being a force for good and working with partners that help us give back to communities is very important, right? And it's also helped us develop strong relationships with our players. We have this strategy that we call the helmets off strategy, which essentially is like, in American football, you have helmets, right? So you can't see what they look like, right? So on the one hand, we want to know what our players look like, but more importantly, we want to know who they are as human beings and what they care about and what do they burn for. Yeah. And so causes and things that are really deep down and intimate to them has really become a part of what we do. And we leverage our platform. We work together with them to help them express themselves and build their own sort of, their own personalities and their own equity as a player, right? Both on the field and off the field. So, a lot of what I do is, using our platform, expressing the things that we care about, the values that we have through our players, and so we have a more human, compassionate voice. And then again, trying to find ways to expand the NFL, not only in the U.S., but also internationally.
Sounds like a lot of emails and PowerPoints.
Yes.
No, I'm teasing. It sounds huge. It sounds like a big job, and there's like all these different facets, like you say, growing new audiences, building the personalities of all these players in all these different teams. Like there's so much breadth to everything you just said, and I'm excited to dive in more. Yeah. What's a day in the life of your work, Sara?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I love speaking about the work that I get to do. I say I have one of those pinch me jobs, right? So BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. We've helped over 6 million people globally. We have over 30,000 licensed therapists that we connect people with so that they can be on the pursuit of mental wellness. And so we say we exist to champion the well-being in all of us and break down barriers to mental wellness worldwide. And so day in the life is really thinking about how do we break down that stigma? And we find that stigma very much still persists when it comes to mental health. So we commissioned a report called The State of Stigma, and we found this year in 2026 that 85% of people globally say, yes, seeking support for your mental health is a good thing. But here's the paradox. 74% of people say that society gets in the way. When it comes to them seeking help, they fear what society will say about them. 74. And so collectively, I'll say, yes, this is a great thing. But when it comes to the individual, actually taking that first step is incredibly hard. So what I spend my time thinking about is how do we join conversations about mental health for better or worse, it's zeitgeist, it's in the culture. So where do we join those conversations? Who do we partner with to help us normalize mental health and encourage people to take that first step or to get back into therapy? So sports is a great way for us to tell those stories. You think about the connection between physical fitness and mental wellness. You think about what it takes to be a high performer like someone in the NFL. We do a lot of partnerships with women's sports. So the rise of the fandom of the WNBA, I could talk about all day, and the collective effervescence of being a fan, right? And what does that take? And so we have 3 partnerships with the WNBA teams, with the Dallas Wings, who are sort of the underdog, the Las Vegas Aces, who of course were the champions last year, and the New York Liberty.
Live like 3
Big
blocks from
fan,
there,
I know, exactly. And we do a lot of great social impact work with them as well, in addition to, of course, the BetterHelp branding and raising awareness.
And doesn't it feel different when you go to a
does.
WNBA game?
It does.
The vibes, the energy, I mean,
It does.
it's incredible.
So I have to say, like, I'm a Bay Area gal, so I'm a Dubs and the Valkyries. And when you go to Chase Center and you watch a Valkyries game, it is absolutely dynamic. It is packed. It's electric.
Yeah.
Even more than a Warriors, I think.
Can I
Heard it
just
here
say this?
first.
One of the most impactful PSA programs that we ever did was for mental health and awareness. And we had all these NFL players who were very open and vulnerable and transparent about their own struggles. And it was so meaningful, particularly for teenagers. It was so meaningful to people because these guys who they thought, were just impenetrable and that, and didn't have any kind of like weakness or lack of confidence or any of these worries, to hear them talk so openly and so vulnerably about their own sort of mental health challenges, anxiety and depression and so forth, was just incredibly powerful to people. I brought together a year ago 11 leagues, right, together with the Ad Council in the U.S., and we did a campaign on mental health and awareness together as a group. And we're all competitors, so it's often difficult to get sports leagues to work together. But when we did that, it had so much impact. The name of the campaign was Love Your Mind. And so what you're talking about, I just love to hear that. And I appreciate what you said about the power of sports to do that.
Absolutely. That's part of the conversation. And that was such a powerful campaign. Kudos to you.
Just on the, I was going to bring you in.
I was just going to think about that,
I'm
speaking about the
segueing.
power of the mind. I'm from understood.org, which is a leading organization focused on neurodiversity, which is people who have conditions like ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and everybody navigating neurodiversity nowadays has a lot of challenges in the U.S. with what's going on. But the important thing that we've seen more recently is the rise of the term neurodiversity, rise of awareness of neurodiversity, and how that has actually become a really important element for marketers. We've found that 50% of the creative industry is neurodivergent, 53% of Gen Z is identifying as neurodivergent, and this is becoming the future of what America can be. And there's a lot of business case, and being a social impact company talking about social impact, it's great to hear other brands are taking it seriously, because if you think about neurodiversity in brands, particularly when it comes to the actual business case for social impact, engaging neurodivergent people at work, there's both a revenue and a bottom line opportunity, right? People who are neurodivergent solve problems more effectively, efficiently. They can come up with more creative ideas and drive innovations within companies. And if they are engaged correctly, there's actually a reduction in turnover, there's a reduction in frictional cost of replacing employees, and there's also a huge new revenue opportunity with a $1.9 trillion buying power. There's a huge opportunity for people and brands to engage the community.
Well, on that point, I was reading in your research that people with ADHD in particular are 90% more loyal to a brand. Was that?
Yes. We just released a paper with Cannes Lions, the Unstereotype Alliance, and Shift 20, and it found that neurodivergent individuals, primarily people with ADHD, have a 90% brand loyalty rate, and that is incredible, right? But to somebody who's neurodivergent, we often use the crest example. Like when I got here, I had to look for toothpaste because I forgot it. And I went through every single line, looking at every single thing, not knowing which would be better. I'm like, is blue better, green better? And perseverating on that difference. So if I find something, I'm not going to switch. The cognitive load for me to switch is way too high. If I have a favorite team, I'm not going to research a new team. If I have a therapist, I'm not going to research a new therapist. But having the way in which to engage people and leverage that loyalty is not done yet. And on the flip side, brands don't engage people that constructively. So 20% of people who are neurodivergent feel the brands aren't engaging them.
Yeah.
And so that leads to whole new opportunities for people to engage.
Makes you think, doesn't it? As marketers, that's the kind of gold dust stat that feels like a huge opportunity. Can I invite us all to take our helmets off for a minute? Like, I do want to get back to the business case and some of the amazing work you're doing, but I'd love to hear what drives you as individuals. It's such a big part of how we are brilliant at our jobs, how we inspire our teams, and how we have the bravery to do the kind of work that you all are talking about. So, I can share one. Like, I have become very aware. I've worked in this industry my whole career. I'm going down the Croisette feeling this torn feeling about our industry. I love it. I'm so aware of the power and influence that we have and how that can be an amazing force, but also how we're not necessarily always using that power in the right ways. And so recently I've joined the advisory board of Scroll Aware, which is this organization that's all about being aware of scroll addiction and like how our industry is fueling these social media companies and the polarization and loneliness it's fueling. Like, it's become something I'm really passionate about. It's work adjacent, but it's not my job, and it's just something that's giving me this like amazing energy. So I just wondered if there was something that sparked for you, something you care about, in or out the office, just to sort of get a little insight into who you are on the personal side of that Venn diagram.
I can start and then throw it to you. I mean, because the being neurodivergent and working in a for-profit world for many, many years, 25 years, having the ability to do that every single day and partner with and alongside and work through other brands to help deliver impact is incredibly meaningful, right? Being able to actually say I'm neurodivergent to an audience, that is actually enabling people to see a leader who is neurodivergent actually talking about it in a constructive way. Because then you have people who are, oh, that is like me. I can be somebody, and it's not that I have a deficit. I have a power that I can do things very differently, and that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
I've got I love helping people sort of through mentorship, right? Like I'm on the board right now of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I can't tell you how rewarding that is to be a part of that group. And I mean, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without important mentors in my life. And so using my own sort of platform or my own influence to help others and to also empower others on that is incredible. I mean, we at the NFL, we had a program where we started with a Super Bowl commercial around the power of mentorship, right? It called "You Are Somebody," right? And it was all around children and helping children realize their own possibilities and have self-belief. And then we sort of worked together with them into our draft, which the NFL and the draft in the U.S. is a really big moment, right? It's like the third most talked about moment of the year online. That's how big it is, only behind the Super Bowl and the Grammys. And so we used So we used the draft, we called it the big draft, right, with Big Brothers Big Sisters to sort of then, recruit more mentors. And we had like 30,000 kids on the wait list for a mentor for decades, right? And even though we kept bringing in more mentors, we couldn't get that 30,000 down. And after this period working from February through the spring, that went to 20,000. So a third of that was broken down just through this working together, collaborating and working and using the platform, right, for good. So
incredible.
For me, that human connection, that ability to help others and mentor others has always been a passion for me.
Yeah, and I'll build on both of those. So I think it's really important for young people to see leaders who look like them. So I'm obviously a woman in business. Still, too few of us exist today. Luckily, that's increasing. I'm a mother. I very much lead with that. I lead with empathy with my team. I, too, mentor people who are coming up in their careers. And I also recently became a lending partner, or limited partner, in a venture fund called Mother Ventures. And the whole thesis of Allison Stern, who's the the lead investor in this fund, is mother is consumer. So again, so much purchasing power from mothers, right? They run the household, they make these decisions on where the money is being spent. And it just is a happy little accident that, most of the portfolio companies are run by women as well, right? And so it's fascinating and such a joy for me to be able to use, my money and also some of my experience to help these companies that are directly working with women, for women.
Incredible. It's really beautiful seeing how you all light up talking about those things. I feel it too. And I could talk about that for the whole hour, but I'm going to change gears. And now I want to talk about the hard-nosed business. So no more feelings, no more warm and fuzzies. How did you get approval to use a huge investment like a Super Bowl spot to talk about your mentorship program and your partnership with Big Brothers and Big Sisters? And before you answer, I want to have a challenge, which is, I read about your incredible program, and I read the increased volunteer rates with that particular Big Brothers and Sisters house by 433%. So the social impact is clear, but what was the business impact?
So the business impact for us is always around fandom, right? And the strength of that fandom, because let's face it, that's the way we earn money, right? We license out our content, and we partner with big brand partners that are global now, increasingly global. And so the size of that fan base and the diversity of that fan base is incredibly important. And the perceptions of the NFL that we have out there are very important to bring others closer, to help us in our ecosystem, right? They help us build our brand and bring more people in. And so, it's very clear that when the NFL shows that side of themselves, like we have our values, we have our partners, we know who we are, but like we have to express it in a powerful way as well, right? And what we've seen is that it improved perceptions of the NFL about the NFL being a uniter and NFL caring about their fans and their players significantly, which increased more attention, more viewing of our content and of our games, and also just increased overall more engagement. So essentially that helps us be even more powerful, right? And have even a more influential platform of which to do good. So it's sort of a very virtuous cycle of how we bring others in, we strengthen our platform, and we continue to do the things that we know will be a force for good and help our communities. But at the same time, it's without a doubt, it's very clear. It's helping us build our fan base, which we monetize.
Yeah, and do you measure that brand sentiment? Are those KPIs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's continued to increase for the last 8 years pretty dramatically.
Like you say, actually. 47% of your fan base is women. I mean, it must be such a resonant issue with mothers and
It's most meaningful to women, to people of color, and to our youth audience. Oh, right.
Which exactly.
And those are all the three audiences that are fueling the growth of our fan base.
Yeah. I would just build on that again. I think it's all about brand sentiment and perception, right? So how are people thinking about your brand? They may be aware of you, right? But what does this brand stand for? What does it do? And there's nothing more powerful than putting your money where your mouth is, right? And so really being able to give back to communities in a meaningful way, being able to engage these audiences in a way that's really resonant is something that will pay off time and time again, not only in awareness, but in perception. That really matters. And I think increasingly in a world where people are discovering brands more and more in LLMs and in gen purpose, bots, right, and AI, they're looking for trust, right? And so I think that's the next metric that we'll be measuring when it comes to social impact.
But also, you are the chief growth officer, right? And so, sentiment is amazing, but it's very hard to quantify. And what is easy to quantify is app downloads and therapy hours consumed. And like your Mind Over Madness campaign, where you donated over 1,000 hours of therapy to college students, that's a really interesting example to me, because you gave away very expensive product. Like, where does that budget come from? Is that marketing budget, and is it tied to a KPI like app downloads, or is it just top of funnel?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm glad you brought up Mind Over Madness. And we actually donated 1,000 hours initially, and then hours per every assist during March Madness this season, which was really exciting to see. Cool. And we actually donated almost 40,000 hours of therapy.
Incredible.
Right? And so it's a marketing budget. right? And so we look at where are we going to allocate those dollars, and then how do we think about how is that driving perception? And perception is part of an overall brand health score. And when your overall brand is performing well, you see the halo effect in app downloads and trials and all of these things. And the math proves it out. We're quite data driven. And so I would actually say that measuring brand is easy, right? If you have the right approach to it. But it absolutely has a halo effect on the commercial results.
Fascinating. I mean, it's such a brave campaign. And it's so interesting when you all sit around this table, you think this is quite perhaps a disparate panel, but actually there's this real thread between all of the work. It's all using sport and using a kind of a combating of stigma to like repair these little pieces of the social fabric. So I think it's actually a really lovely conversation to thread some of these pieces of work together. Is there any final closing thoughts you'd like to share with our audience live, with our audience in the room before we wrap up?
I just thank you so much for being here and for you bringing together these very, there's a lot of ways that we can all help as marketers and not just think about our own P&Ls, of course, but think about what good are we putting in the world. Yeah. And I think that's increasingly important as CMOs.
The other thing I would say is that it's a complex time right now, right? And there's a lot of tension out there, not just in the U.S., but across the world. And I think the more brands lean in and provide messages of unity and empathy, I don't think has ever been so important, right? And I think that what often happens is that in times like this, brands retreat, right? They're afraid to move in and do things that might be a mistake and that might, result in something with a backlash or something that could go wrong. And I think it's important for us to encourage and inspire other brands and marketers. Here we are in Cannes, right? I think we have to inspire other marketers to have courage and to sort of lean into the things that they feel and they know that are deep in their values.
Right.
And I think as a social impact nonprofit, we thank a lot of the corporate partners who still and remain committed to social impact. There are a lot who are pulling back, but who are now retrenching and coming back into the scene to invest in the communities that they operate in. We help mostly moms, and we value the partnerships we have and the commitment that everybody has to making the fabric of our society better.
And I'll just say you are doing a fantastic job of articulating the business benefit of investing and taking the time to learn about neurodivergence and how it can thrive in the workplace. Yes. Really recommend everybody check out Nathan's work. Thank you so much for joining me. I founded Good Loop because I really am passionate about turning social impact strategies into business strategies. And I've seen through my work and through learning from you all that there is very clear ways that you can quantify it and tie it to business outcomes. So hopefully we have inspired and shown courage and inspired a new conversation like this somewhere in the Quaset today. And so thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.